Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Here.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Romero? Mr. Sproul?
Here.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdugo?
Here. Approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda items as submitted.
Second. Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero? Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdugo?
Yes. On advisory member comment.
Thank you. Again, welcome. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate it. I can't say that enough and emphasize that enough as far as the commitment and time that you devote to the district, so we appreciate it. This is the agenda item, which basically allows any BOC committee member to make any comments regarding any issues that you might have or questions you might have. So,
None here. Financial report, bond expenditures and encumbrances, Mr. Encina.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. Attached, as usual, are the financial reports for the period ending September 6, 2017. As I noted in the cover letter, the governing board was provided this very same information at their recent board meeting, which basically met the requirement of providing the community an update as to the district's bond and override expenditures for the fiscal year 2016-17. In regards to the bond expenditures, basically what we reported to the governing board, what I handed out right before the meeting, was copies of attachments on the agenda, attached to the agenda, which basically showed that last year, at this approximate time, we had about $14.7 million of bond funds deposited in the county treasurer. As of September 6th, we have $7.1 million, which is basically, if you can do the math, we've spent $7.6 million of bond funds in the various projects, and the reports indicate which areas the expenditures took place. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If not, this is an information item.
Ms. Lopez.
Yeah, going back. This is what we spent, not what's encumbered. Or does that include?
That report-
I'm not reading the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm looking at this other stuff.
Right, it reports both what was expended and what's encumbered.
Okay, cool.
So last year, we had spent $64,015,000. We had encumbered $1.6 million. This year, as of September 6th, we had spent $71.6 million. We have encumbered $2.07 million. Ending cash, $14.7 last year, and this year, $7.1. Just for the committee's memory, our next sale is scheduled, which is the last $9.4 million, is scheduled to be sold till spring of 2019.
Call for the audience.
No, sir.
Number 3A, elementary, middle school, pediatric program proposal, Mr. Encina.
I'll turn this over to Mr. Holmes.
Sure. Can you pull it up, please? And I'll go ahead and drive the PowerPoint if they don't mind. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Dong, who then met with a number of the programs that were specifically elementary and middle school mariachi programs. So they have some instrumentation, but they still have been struggling. He came in to call the audience, I want to say about a month back when we were over at Los Ranchitos, and the committee asked him, go back and meet with folks and put together proposals. So that's what the presentation is today. And since him and I met, I can actually go through it briefly. He was going to be here, so I'm not sure if he got caught up, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through it for him. Just F5. So he stated this last time in terms of it's a growing program. There were instruments bought for the feeder pattern specifically, which has been the Gallego school because it was a fine art. So they started with some mariachi instruments, enough to start, but it's grown you've even seen the Gallego group, the 4-8, God, they've got an army of mariachis. Yeah, it's really nice, but they've outgrown that need. Mr. Dong has had a mariachi at Laufer, but again, it's growing. And then you've got a few feeders, which is Los Amigos and Liberty, who are actually needing just some startup support to really get the program going. I'll go a little bit more in depth, but here are really the 5 schools that are in this proposal. Los Amigos, they have a young teacher who's, I think, in her 2nd year. She's a former Mariachi Aslan student. And so if you've never seen Pueblo's Aslan group, they're just amazing. The talent coming out of that group is just at another level. And so she's been trying to start a group, but she currently has no instruments. Liberty has a teacher there, Miss Perron, who's actually has her own instrument that she takes, but nothing for the school. Laufer basically has a few things, but they've been in existence for now, I want to say about over a decade now, probably 15 years. So they've got some older instruments. And then you can see a little bit of the inventory. The Gallegos was front-loaded, particularly with the guitarrones, vihuelas, guitars, a trumpet, 5 violins, and they're on loan from Miss Piña's collection. And then Sierra Middle School, who actually also got some guitars, vihuelas, and guitarrones, but is actually growing there from another former Pueblo trumpeter who's out there, Leonor, she's doing a wonderful job. As you can see, the enrollment is growing. So that's kind of why this proposal is in front of you today. Los Amigos had last year about 8 students. There's 15 and growing. Liberty really didn't have a program started, although Ms. Burrow has done some support there in the past, not really formally. Mr. Dong's has doubled. Sierra is just growing rapidly as well. And then you can see Gallegos Fine Arts, 80 kids enrolled. And she does that during the day and during her first period class. They also have had summer programs that they've been running. This is the 2nd annual summer institute that they put together, which was nice. So that's been kids bringing their own instruments, but they've been borrowing from others. And so really this is the ask. Los Amigos need of 1 Yamaha guitar, one vihuela, 2 guitarrones and 2 vihuelas, and 15 guitars for Liberty. 2 guitarrones, 2 vihuelas, 15 guitars for Laufer. 2 guitarrones, 2 vihuelas, 15 guitars, 2 more trumpets and music stands at Sierra. And then at Gallego, she's needing a lot more violins with the amount of students. 10 violins, 4 more trumpets, 8 guitars, 2 vihuelas, and 20 stands. And I just kind of make sure I'm real clear. Many of these students are also band kids as well, and we encourage them to be band or orchestra kids. So the instrumentation represents the needs from kids who are currently in the program that are actually kind of in both mariachi and in orchestra. When I met with Mr. Dong, I said, this is a one shot, so make sure you get what you need. And he's a humble young man, and so he got with all the teachers and he felt like their ask is appropriate, given, and I'll show you the bill, given where they think they are developmentally and where they think they can get fundraisers moving down the line. They also didn't want to be considered greedy, given the fact that Bach had just approved a lot of money for instruments across the board. They do feel like they can work with the band and orchestra teachers as their program grows, but to kickstart it, this is really kind of a good ask for them, which is under 20,000, I believe. Instrumental Music Center is asking for 16,800 was a low bid, which is what's being asked today for approval for the instrumentation for those 5 schools.
Ms. Lopez?
Question, are they also going to be loaned out to the students, not necessarily because how they're going to practice and all that?
They usually do loan out, like we do with traditional programs, they loan them out.
And just like they typically do, they also have to sign a checkout, saying that the parent signs off saying they were responsible for the instrument and for the replacement should it be lost or stolen.
That was not, I think it's neat, but if the kids can't practice, what are they going to do?
Mr. Hernandez?
The instruments that are not called out there, what they are they a good brand? Is it something that's going to last?
Yes, having kind of done that work in the past life, yeah, they're actually better than what I remember using. So they've come a long way in some of what you can get now locally. You used to have to get someone to drive down to Guadalajara and then picks them up, and you had to go check them out. I used to go to El Mariachi restaurant. Remember where used to be the old Shakey's on Durackman, trying to find instruments. It's come a long way since then, and the quality is actually pretty excellent. Yeah, they're not junk, especially the ones these vihuelas from the Jimenez brand. They're pretty decent. You used to not be able to get a guitarron for less than $1,200 of quality, and they're less than that, and they'll last.
A little bit on these. Are any of the others bidding the exact same instruments as far as the name brand, or are there any of them there that are bidding on stuff that's a lot better quality?
Knowing the quality of the instrumentation, they're pretty much the same. Some quote retail, some depending on the relationship they have with the district. Like Instrumental Music Center was the group that sold us a lot of instruments, so a lot of their pricing is really already at what they'll give us as a discount. So a lot of it is previous relationships with vendors, but there weren't any significant differences in the brands that they're being quoted. No, so they're not quoting like a high end versus a low end.
Do we have any type of guarantee that comes with the instruments? Do they do any maintenance on them at any time, or is that just left up to us?
There are manufacturer warranties for instruments, but they're usually only good for routine, like a year if there was a damage significantly. But in most cases, the repairs come through us. Yeah, their warranties are not, I would consider significant for the uses that we have.
Yeah, I was wondering if they're like insured or something.
Yeah, we actually have, Mr. McCurry does all the woodwind repairs. Remember he came and presented, so he works out of the old Mission Manor. So the new instruments are not going to need a lot of upkeep as long as kids are taking care of it. The vihuelas and the guitarrones are pretty solid. Usually there's a few local guys that can do work if we need them to kind of repair cracks. A lot of it at this age, quite frankly, is making sure the kids don't ding the guitars. I mean, it's routine that we will have guitars that are going to need repair after a year, just because they're young kids who are learning how to kind of manage a real delicate instrument.
And are there like a storage to store them away when they're not using them? Do you have storage for all these instruments?
Each school does have a place where they can keep instruments. I know each one of these schools that they're asking do have a location where they can keep the instruments locked up.
Mr. Hernandez?
Do we even ask when we buy things if there is a program that will insure the instruments further than the factory warranties?
We have not. Here's the advantage. I worked retail with musical instruments in the past as well, so I just have this kind of real affinity to this work. It's not worth it, in my opinion. Usually any kind of damage, the cost associated with what repairs we can do internally, at least for the lower end stuff, it's not worth
I'm
paying.
not talking about all the instruments, I'm just talking about the instruments that after a little bit of, say, 2 years of use, they know this thing is going to happen because it happens all the time.
No,
I don't mean all the instruments.
Yeah, no. Even if I took select ones like that, our internal maintenance group with that, when they turn them back in, is actually pretty top notch. And so I think it would be, quite frankly, probably a waste of money to invest in a warranty plan with this instrumentation. Carl does a wonderful job, and then the instructors do a really nice job of keeping up with them. I wouldn't invest in, at least not at this stage in there.
Mr. Hernandez?
Steve, I know you speak with programs, first come the instruments and, these good instruments that they could work with, and next come the trajes. So how far past this proposal are the trajes going to come?
I told him this is your one shot. So we talked about this, but what my expectation is, quite frankly, with our mariachi groups is that they do some fundraising with the trajes. I mean, you can buy the botonadura and then have a sewing party. Trajes can get up there, you know, and Mr. Del Cid, actually, we asked him to put a proposal for here, but he didn't submit a proposal on time for this meeting. We still have not seen it. So I know he needs trajes, but it's gonna cost about $5,000 for just one set of good trajes for a performance group.
For one school.
For one school. And so my advice usually, unless they're gonna be performing way out, is that they do some fundraisers, and in the meantime, buy the bow ties, white shirts, black pants, and then down the road, they can do the botonadura. But unless they're gonna be performing routinely, I wouldn't invest in trajes now, not until they get a performance group going. I think the closest right now is for that type of performance would be Laufer, Mr. Dong, but he already has some trajes and he's invested in, and Gallego, but she's also former pro mariachi. She's got some connections, got the kids dressed up appropriately. Having looked at Davis Group for some time, which is kind of the premier elementary group, a lot of times the kids wear black jeans, pants, and they just wear the ties. They've invested in trajes in the past, but they tend to not be a good investment at that age, not for what you're getting them for.
These vendors, the four, are they all local?
Yes, all four of them are local, yes. Yeah.
Another question with respect, I noticed there's a difference in names of the, for example, Sin Dulce Violin outfit, or Sophie Maria Mari Violin. Is there a difference in the names to each one, like the trumpet, the violin? Is there a difference in quality?
No, they're all entry level, and so depending on the vendor and what they manage, usually they have a similar, but they have a different name, but of similar quality. Like the Jupiter, where's the Eastman lacquer trumpet, the ones we're looking at, instrumental music centers, is equivalent almost exactly like the one that's quoted. Where's I saw a Jupiter one. Chicago says like the Jupiter, and I know both brands. They're pretty much your kind of like your con, their entry level con ones. They're probably about $400 retail each one. But yeah, just they're more brand name difference than they are.
Yeah, I know she had 54 Yamaha Classic, which seems to be a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and Yamaha's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Usually, if I'm going to buy a entry level, it's a good brand to have.
Turn on.
I have a question. As far as the school performing at any events, do we have anything like where all the schools, the teacher picks? Well, the main thing I gotta know first is how many students qualify as a mariachi band?
You can
Normally there's what, 10, 12, 5, 6?
You probably, if you want a true mariachi, you at least have to have one of each of the instruments playing, which would probably about 6 if you want to have like a full group. All these groups, though, usually have definitely more than that. So the performance level groups for most of these schools, I've seen minimally about 25 kids. And they've every year, this last year, we've been having these, a big performance concert. Had one in April of this year, and all 5 of the, no, it was because the schools that presented, Sierra presented, Gallego, Laufer, Los Amigos played. I think those are the only 3 that actually performed that evening.
Do we have any of the schools, instead of everybody participating, having each school to participate, do we have anything where each teacher from every school picks one of their best that they think is their best, that they can form one group to perform at a higher level?
So Mr. Dong was playing around the idea of having an honors mariachi.
Yeah.
So but we're not at that level yet. No, but he's close. So he's got like certain kids that are kind of rising to that occasion from the performance group. So this next year, what they want to do is an honor, kind of like we do with honor band,
Yeah.
and have that same thing. So conceptually,
Well, it would be something that the students would want to strive for. See, if you make something where they're going to be honored for being the best at their instrument, then it's something that they could say, hey, you know what? I can make this, or I can do this, I just have to study more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great idea. We'll push, and usually what I'm hoping to do this year is we do it a little bit earlier in spring. There's a lot of conflicting events, and we'll invite the Bach as well, so you guys know when that will happen. I mean, sing up on stage with us. Pick a song. I'll sing.
So when they say bag, is it actually a bag or is it a case?
It's a bag. It's a case bag. It's kind of like like a vinyl bag. They're not. I mean, they're decent. I mean, enough to put them away. Because usually the ones they come with are those cardboard cases. I have it, and I'd rather have the bag. Quite frankly, it's probably got even more. The cardboard ends up ripping closer, and then the hard cases are more than the guitars themselves. So the bags are usually the option that they go going.
Okay.
Again, hard case is probably like $80, and the guitars are probably like $60, $70.
It's just the 5 schools right now.
That's correct. He did do his due diligence though and reached out to other schools that may have interest. But right now, you have to have someone on staff really that wants to do it, and there weren't any other schools that had that.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the governing board to award the lowest bidder instrument and music center.
Thank you.
Purchase order in the amount of $16,868.91. For 54 Yamaha classical guitars with bags, 30 gold music stands with bags, 6 Eastman lacquered trumpets, 10 gold violin outfit, 9 H. Jimenez Premium Vihuelas with bags, and 6 H. Jimenez Premium Talon with bags.
Second it.
Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yeah.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero? Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdugo?
Yes. Designate high school, Sunnyside High School, batting cage.
Thank you, Mr. Verdugo. Mr. Gomez has contacted various companies to receive proposals for the construction of to build baseball batting cages at both of our high schools. As the committee will recall, the existing batting cages are I would say substandard in regards to, in comparison to other facilities in the local area. And the request is being made by both high schools to have Bach approve the construction of 2 batting cages. Basically, the base bid for the batting cage will be the construction of 2 90-foot long by 42 feet wide and 15-foot high batting cages, including 2 options. One would be a concrete slab, and the other would be a concrete curbing with clay infield. Both surfaces, though, would be covered, the proposal would be cover both surfaces with the artificial turf that was left over from the construction of the golf facility at Sunnyside High School. That turf is being currently stored in our warehouse, so it's been properly safeguarded and is available for other uses. Based on the cost proposal, we're looking at either $32,208 for the concrete curbing with clay infill, and there's an update as far as the cost of the clay. We'll have to double that amount. I found out from Mr. Valencia today that the cost of the clay would be twice that amount, about $4,400. The $32,208 would only be for the concrete curbing around the batting cage. Option B would be a complete concrete slab, and the cost of that would be $54,796. In addition to that, then Liberty Fence submit a proposal under our bid with them to install the actual batting cage, 90 foot long by 42 feet wide and 15 feet tall, with 4x7 gates on each end of the batting cage. The cost of that would be $53,900 for both of them. In terms of electrical for the batting cages, Mr. Gomez had contacted a contractor, Emory Electric LLC, and the proposal that they submitted is basically $8,896.56 to provide the electrical and the lights for the batting cages. However, Mr. Gomez did contact a contact that he has locally, Mr. Jonathan Moreno, a licensed electrician with the Fred Acosta Job Corps Center, and he has students in his class that he proposed would be available to install the actual lights and the electrical at no charge, with the district just providing the supplies and materials. Lastly, a proposal to have a batter's box purchased from BSN Sports. That would basically be the batter's box and the home plate. The cost of that would be $1,013.74. So basically at this point in time, the options are being made available to the committee for your consideration are either A, $94,321.74 for 2 cages, or B, which is concrete slab, $114,909.74 for both cages. I believe we have individuals from both high schools tonight that will be available to answer any questions you may have, and I'll just open it up for questions.
Mr. Nunes?
I got a question. You're saying that you want it 90 feet long.
Yes.
Now, I know that from the plate to the pitcher's mound is only 60 feet, 6 inches. Why do we need the extra 30 feet on each side?
That question will be answered by one of our coaches.
Yes, I am Coach Barber at Sunnyside High School. I know the dimensions are 60, but we just can't have, this is home plate, my catcher's right by the fence, and the pitcher's right up against the fence. That's the dimension. So they do need room to spread out, warm up. Plus, we're going to be hitting in there, pitching in there, so it's more for the hitting part of it, but not so much the pitching part of it.
Why would you need more than 10 feet from the back of the plate to the back of the cage if only the catcher and the pitcher are there? Most of the time, most of the machines that I've seen that throw a ball, that you're going to be having the machine throw a ball, you throw it into a bag, put a backstop that has a bag in it, and the pitches that the kid doesn't hit go into the bag. Now, why would you need a catcher to be throwing the ball back if all you have to do is have a cage full of ball, and he grabs one and throws it? When he gets through the 50 or 60 pitches, rubber batter, then you go and pick them up. I don't understand why you need 30 feet behind and 30 feet in front.
Well, 30 feet total, not 50 behind, so it's big, about 15 and 15, which gives you some space to do some things. Like I said, we don't want to be right up against the fence because the ball will ricochet and get the kid knocked down. So if there's some space behind it, if the kid misses a ball or a kid hits a ball straight off the back screen, the guy in the machine has some room for the ball to go by. So if there's a pole right here standing right behind it, get up that pole and hit me.
You're how far from the back wall? What, 8 feet?
About 10 feet maybe, around them.
That's not 10 feet.
Well, give or take.
Well, come forward and I'll tell you where 10 feet is, right about there. Okay? You're gonna tell me that a ball thrown by some kid who only throws at 80 some miles an hour at best is gonna hit the back screen and hit the batter?
Well, we got netting, but there's the poles that are there. So I don't know, but if you hit a baseball off a pole, they ricochet. They just don't go straight into the net.
Most nettings don't touch the metal post. They're supposed to hang so it doesn't, everything is hanging, the net is hanging all the way around.
Right,
That's what we need.
That's why we need some space for that, for the balls to get in there, so we're not up against the fence. Feeding the machine, or the batter's hitting right up against the fence with the fence behind it. If I take a pitch, let it go, it comes off the machine, hits the hitter. So it's just all for safety, really, what it is. It's just to give the kids space so they're not crammed in for that.
Also, just for transparency purposes, it's two tunnels per cage, right? It's 42 feet wide, so you actually have 2 2 batting cages within that 1 batting cage.
Oh, okay. Now, see, you didn't
It's
say that.
42,
Yes.
42 feet
90
wide,
feet.
but there's going to be 2 batting
Batting
cages.
cages, well, that's different.
2 batting
See,
cages in
now,
there.
had you said that from the beginning,
But it's still 42 by 90.
Yeah, still 42 by
Still 42 by 90.
Yes, so there'll be a tunnel down the lower end.
Though I know for a reason at my school is because we got 3 teams, but we only got 2 areas for teams to practice. So for our JV kids and our freshman kids, they're sharing 1 field, but one of the teams is hitting like out in the middle. They're taking batting practice while the other team is taking infield and I guess you could say doing their first and third, their defensive stuff. The other team hits out in the middle of the wide open area at Sunnyside by the softball fields, in between the 2 softball fields, which is not safe because a lot of times they'll hit it into the parking lot or hit it by the girls' softball field or the JV softball field. That way one of those teams can come use the tunnel by our field, they can practice hitting in there instead of out in the middle of nowhere. So that's another safety reason that I was looking at, is to keep our kids from hitting somebody, you know, walking through the field or walking through their makeshift field out there. They can go hit in the cage, use that one side, and you can have their whole team practicing there. And then the next day, they can switch or vice versa or whatever. So it just makes it easier for the kids and a lot safer. That's what it really comes down to.
oh, okay, I've got another question. If you're saying the field itself where you're gonna be batting the 2 cages, that they're 90 foot long, and you're telling me that only one is 42 feet?
No, they're 42 feet wide.
42 feet wide.
Right, but there's 2 cages going in. So you got 1 cage, which is gonna be split about
Which is 90 foot long, and then
20, yeah, so you got 20, you got 2 tunnels. So basically what you do, you split it in half, so you can have like guys hitting on that side.
No, I
guys hitting on
understand
this
that,
side.
but that's what I'm getting at. You're still gonna have 2 cages, 90 foot long, which I don't think is necessary. I mean, that's way overkill. Now, if it was, say, 45, 50 foot long, because it doesn't have to be exactly 6 foot 6 inch, 60 foot 6 inches for somebody to hit a ball. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I understand that, but
Are these comparable to other schools, dimension-wise?
that's like if you go to Kilo right here, that's the dimensions that they got there. So because they use their, what they do is, you can't set your machine inside their cage, they got a pitcher's mount, but they can't set the machine on it, so they scoot it back.
Right.
So they move their, and they have like a, I guess you could say a bullpen, which they set their machines behind, so the machines are behind, so that gives them their extra room that they need to use the machine in there. That's just the only difference.
What are the dimensions of the batting cages that you're using now?
Oh my God, at our school, it's probably, I'd say maybe like 60 by 15 by about another 15 or so.
And you have the 2 cages,
It's one,
just the one?
or just one.
You just have one.
Yeah, and it's like half of it.
And so where you're requesting the batting cages is in the same area that you have them now?
No, ma'am, they would be relocated to, at Sunnyside behind the first base dugout, there's an existing already bullpen fence there area. They would be in that area right there, behind the dugout.
What is the basic size that, or should I say, uniform size that all high schools are using as far as their batting cages, do you know?
That I couldn't tell you simply because, you know, I'm not at every high school checking out their batting cage, but we've done work here at Keno, and that's where I get, you know, get the dimensions from there. But to go to every high school is different. Our cage was built in like the 70s by parents.
Excuse me, can I ask somebody from Desert View, what are the size of your batting cages?
We're 70.
You're 70? So would you say that most high schools are 70, or give and take, everybody's different, every high school?
We were satisfied with 70. Of course, everybody could use 90 for those kind of reasons. But 70 is the double batted cages. We've been pleased with it.
The other reason is because at Sunnyside, we have already the netting for 90 feet. Our nets fit 90 feet. So we already have 2, I think they run about $8,000 a piece of netting. So the netting we already got to put in there, and those are 90 foot long already. So to waste that extra foot with the net would be a waste of the net. Yes.
So, since you don't want to waste the net, and you want to put an extra, say from their side of their school, 20 feet, what is the difference in cost between saving the net and putting the additional 20 feet on with concrete and everything else it needs as far as posts, electrical and everything else? What's the difference?
That I have no idea. I'm not really sure.
It's just like you said, you don't know the distance of the cages that you have now. Why don't you know?
Yeah, I do.
Aren't you the baseball coach?
Yeah, I just said what they were. I know exactly where they're right around there.
I mean, you could just take 114 divided by 90 and say that's how much it is per foot, you know?
We got a proposal for 70 feet. I'll look it up. Just for,
It's like $600 a
for
foot.
conceptual purposes, from here to there, okay, the enclosure here is 25 feet, counting the squares. So one tunnel would be 21 feet. So you just take 4 squares away from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'd actually be from the width of one of the batting cages would be from here to the exit side.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
that's how
I know,
wide
I
the
play
tunnel is.
baseball, I know.
So
I know
you
what
look
you
at the
need
two of those.
to play.
Yes.
Or
Look
to
at
have
two
a
of
batting
those.
cage, you don't need 90 feet.
So the cost of 70 foot would be, all right, we got Mr. Philip. Yes, sir. With Liberty Fence.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Philip Rodriguez with Liberty Fence and Supply. First of all, to the board, thank you very much for all the business you've given us and helped improve the community. Plus, as they're in the community, my kids went to school here. And thanks for making our company stronger. And in return, we were trying to do such quality to the school and to the kids back. So when we do the batting cages off of the city code and Pima County, the batting cages are 70 foot long, 32 feet wide. That's for a double batting cage, 12 foot tall. And that's with either 8.
So that's 15 on each side.
Yes, sir. And that's with posts in the middle, and then when we hang the nets are like 2 feet around so when the ball hits.
Right, it drops rather than bouncing. No, I know. I've been in a lot of batting cages, I know. That's why I was saying, he says the ball bouncing off of the backstop or bouncing off of the net or hitting the ceiling and bounce. As soon as it hits the net, it drops because there's no pressure there anymore. It just goes up and it falls down.
So all the schools, the majority of the schools, if it's done correctly by licensed contractors who do the 70 foot by, the 72 by the 32, 70 by 32 by 12 foot tall. And then we hang the nets off with bungee cord so when it does hit, it just floats and doesn't damage the net.
Right.
And then it's like a foot overhang, so nothing goes under.
What was the cost on that proposal for 70 by 32?
I believe with tax and everything, it was, before tax was like 19,000. With tax, I think it ended up like 22,000, about 22,000 or so.
That's for one.
That's for a double.
I mean, but for
Yes.
one school. So
Yes.
double that would be 44,000.
Yes, sir.
And then if you go with licensed contractors bid for lighting, that's another 8,000. So it's 50,000 versus 94,000. The lowest bid, I like those numbers.
Well, you still gotta pick up a slab
Yeah.
versus okay, that's
Yeah,
that
that's not
includes
this
the slab.
area.
Yeah.
That's not this area.
So, because the whole thing is here, we're trying to budget stuff.
Sure.
We have to make sure the money gets far enough along for everybody, so we have to watch what we're doing with the money.
Sure.
So we don't like it when people bring stuff to us, they don't know everything they're talking about, and then they try to push something on it. Because you should have known the size of the one you have now. That's your job.
I explained that.
That's not our job.
Yeah, explain
The
that.
one you have right now, you're guessing. You didn't say it's 15 feet wide, 14 feet wide, 20 feet wide.
Like I said, I'm not an exact sure because that was built like in the 70s, so it's not like a code up like they are today. But the reason why I
But you knew you
requested
were
our-
coming here.
our streets to be, our cages to be that long is because we already have the 2 nets to put into them. Like the district doesn't have to buy the nets for our school. So you figure there's $5,000 to $8,000 a net. Maybe they're going to save on what they could use to add to the rest of the cement.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, did you,
Yeah, I think this is kind of where the discussion is appropriate. And so having the 70 foot quote, I think is going to be important, because it sounds like we're heading down that road, which was specifically where I think Desert View is okay with. I think, Mr. Morado, you would be good with that, I would assume.
I have one question on that. I noticed we have 15-foot tall. You said the norm is 12-foot tall, county-wise. How much difference 3 feet is overall for the price of the 90 by 40?
I've got his proposal here, a proposal that Mr. Rodriguez submitted, this is dated August 19th, for a 70 by 42 by 12, $19,950, including tax, per cage.
Per cage.
The with tax. The 1865358, 129642 for tax, for a total of 19950.
It's about 70 by 42 by 12?
Yes, sir.
And the 90 by 42 by 15 is 32, right? No. I'm sorry.
I think it should have been like 24 or something like that.
Oh, they're 28. basically. So the smaller one is more? Or I'm not reading something.
Smaller was 19.
19.
19950.
The 70 by
Which means-
42 12 is 19.
19950 times 2.
I think you're about 7,000.
You were-
28 by 2, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Per,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, okay, I'm sorry. Thanks.
I think it's about 7,000 less per chain link for the 70-foot, and 7,000 less approximately for the slab, based on the square foot cost of the slab. If you do a square foot, and you multiply it times 70 instead of 90, it's about a $7,000 difference. So a total of $14,000 less for the 70-foot per cage, per batting cage.
28,000.
So it'd be
With
28,000.
just a concrete curb.
No, that's still using the slab. I use the slab right now when I did a calculation, so I assumed that slab, and I did that just because I know the coaches are favoring that, but we could do it with the curb too, this analysis. But if we use a slab, it'll be about 14,000 less if we go 70 foot per batting cage than if we went 90. Everything else being the same.
And then I have a question, just jump in here. You said you were satisfied with the 70 by, or the 32 that you had?
We would have been satisfied with 7.
By 42.
The reason they were joined, because Sunnyside did have new 90-foot nets.
Okay.
So they asked us to come along with that, for price-wise for them.
So then, Mr. Morales?
Yes, sir.
As far as the 90-foot nets, is that going to be a negative overall if you have the 70?
If you guys, if we get the slab, then that would be perfect. Just with the slab, the fixed slab, then yeah, that would work perfectly. Because the cement will outlast any clay that we put in there and save on maintenance.
I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever had any kid complain that the slab was too small, a slab was too small, or a batting cage was too small? Ever?
You know, I've used college and I've used high school. We're working with you. What we presented, that we could work with 70 because that's what we
No,
work
but
with.
that's not the question I asked you. I
The
asked
students
you
ask,
if you've ever had anybody who's gone into a batting cage, student, whatever, come out and say, after they've gone and batted there, that it was too small. No, right?
no.
I've never heard any kid complain that a batting cage was too small or too large, for that matter. So 70 seems to me to be a number that will work, rather than 90.
Ms. Lopez?
Question, and as far as the gentleman people, you're going to need netting?
We do need nets.
Another question also. Why the choice of concrete slab instead of the curbing with the clay fill? Because at home plate, when you go to bat, you don't have a concrete slab, you have dirt.
Over Desert View, because of we don't have a lot of options where to put ours. Right. And so we've got the football field going down, and as our guys have seen, the water
The drainage.
came right down through all that. So concrete were basically more durable. Another reason, Coach Chavez lives out by Cienega. They used clay, they used the turf, and they had moles destroy it all. And so that was his initial concern,
The most destroyed the turf.
destroy the turf.
He was hungry.
Like the dirt.
I have another
On this
question.
one.
And so I'm trying to understand all the costs here. So there's an additional cost of a batter's box, another $1,000?
I'm just with the fence company that we
Go ahead, Michael.
What it is, it's a mat that you put down and it's got a, painted an image of a home plate and two batter's
The
boxes.
guy with the,
Yeah, so they know where to stand.
Understand.
And those are about $550 each or $600 each. So times two, it's $1,200.
It's just a mat. Trying to put up.
But actually, we should have done times four. Because there's two
Yes.
batting cages in each. Yeah, so it'd really be 2,500, is that correct, Hector?
oh. And then there's the mechanism itself that pitches the balls?
The mat.
have
That-
Their own.
Oh, they have their own, and you wheel it out there and it does, okay.
Mr. Morales.
Just on the mats, if you got them cemented with turf, you don't need those hitters, like I say, the hitting mats they hit off of. If you got the turf in there and the kids are hitting with turf shoes on, not their spikes, it'll last you. So you'll save $2,000 buying those mats. We can put a removable home plate there for, strike zone purposes, but we don't use the actual mats themselves. Those we use on the real field when we're hitting on the real field. But in the cage with cement, because there's so much repetition that takes place in there, that's the reason for the cement, because there's a lot of traffic in and out of the kids. A lot of kids, you got 4 kids hitting at one time, there's a lot of traffic in and out of there versus on the field where you got 1 kid hitting at a time. So in there, you get, the cement will last, it'll last us forever, till the next coach comes, and the next coach comes. But we don't got to maintain pulling weeds, spraying it for weeds, any of that other stuff. So that all happens with the cement.
The match will be a moot point.
Yes, sir.
With the 70 by 32, that basically drops the price down approximately how much?
About $14,000. Yeah.
At each site, right?
Yes, with the concrete slab and the actual cage itself, yes.
So it's 28,000 for both sides.
Yes, 7, yes.
Okay, so basically, if we went with the concrete slab, we'd be looking at saving about 86 then, correct? 114, 909.74.
It'd be,
That's what I'm coming up with, about 87.
so it'd be, instead of 53.9, it'd be 39.9 for Liberty Fence for the 70 by 42 by 12. It'd be 39, 39, 42.
42 foot, so we would stay with the 42 foot?
Yes, sir.
wide?
That's the quote I referenced, 70 by 42.
Make it a double?
I made reference to the gentleman just said, counties is 70 by 32.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, see, so now it's an extra, instead of a 90 by 42, it's a 70 by 42, but for instance, 70 by 32 would be fine.
So,
So 70 by 30, I don't think we got a proposal for 70 by 32.
No, an idea of a double cage. In talking with the people at Keno, when I went and met with somebody there about their batting cages, they said when the net hangs, you need a couple of feet at least. When those balls hit the net, it'll strike a couple of feet. So what these batting cages have at 42 wide, since they're double, is you have chain link and you've got a 4-foot space so that somebody can walk back by there. And also the netting doesn't hit the chain link because then it wears the balls more and so forth. So it's not supposed to hit the chain link. So you have 4 foot and then you have your nets. That tunnel is 14 foot wide. And then we have 6 feet between the 2 tunnels. And we have a row of posts down the center so that when school's out and no one's around and the kids get up and climb on there, we don't have a sag ever. So we have a row of chain link posts down the center, so it's 6 foot center, and then we repeat it, 14 foot and 4 foot on the end, and that equals 42 foot. So that's where the 42 foot came from, and when in talking with a gentleman at Keno Parks, And I went over there, and that's where I got the information about the concrete curb and the clay as an option also.
I thought Mr. Rodriguez gave us a quote for 70 by 32.
I did, and that was at the very beginning, that was last year, or like the end of last year. And I did, and so when I got with my boss, because we're based out of Charlotte, so I got with my boss, and so we're only going 20 feet wider, which really is just chain link, a little bit of chain link and materials, but with the jobs we've been getting and with our suppliers, the pricing we're able to get because of the quantities of material, my boss just said if they're going to move it up to 42, just leave it the same and don't change the price. So the quote that you got is the quote that you got from last year. So we didn't raise our price on it.
One question of the coaches, will we still need to install the turf over the concrete slab?
Yes.
So, why the concrete slab?
Because it'll still last longer.
But you could use ABS or decomposed granite and let it drain down as soon as it goes through the grass, artificial grass itself. If you put 6 or 7 inches of ABS or decomposed granite, it will immediately, as soon as it hits it, it will go right into the ground. It won't move. But you still need to use the special shoes to get on it because you're gonna, with cleats, it's gonna tear that stuff up.
Right.
Even if the pitcher's the one that's doing it, so he's gonna be walking back and forth if there's anybody in there throwing the ball. That's gonna tear up the artificial grass. You don't need artificial grass if they're gonna be using cleats in there. Who's gonna be watching to make sure that no cleats go in there? This is on an honor system, right? You're gonna tell them, don't use cleats. They're gonna say, it's just this one time.
Mr. Chavez is the...
I'm an assistant baseball coach at Desert View. We don't have a batting cage per se. The rusted poles that are there now and the pieces of net that we hand strung together with nylon, that stuff, that thing was built when Desert View was built, what, 95?
No.
86.
89.
85.
89.
The school was opened in 80, what, 5?
85.
85.
And the field wasn't built for another 2 years.
We don't have, they find the 70, 42, 12, we wanted 14, whatever. We need the concrete to make it last. Our guys are tasked with knowing they will do what we tell them to do. You're gonna hit, you're gonna wear turf shoes. Any cleats go on that turf, and that kid will be running till he's an Olympic. You don't do that. Kids listen to what they're told. And what Coach Murado was saying about balls coming back, there are times when the ball will be hit hard enough, it'll push the net back and it'll hit the pole just right and it'll bounce back. That's.
Any batting cage I've ever seen, when they hang the net from the top to the bottom, it's at least 18 inches to 2 feet away from the pole. Any pole around the batting cage. When it's hanging from the ceiling, it's hanging from straps. There is no pole, nothing that it can hit that would make it bounce back. Nothing. If they do the batting cage properly.
The ones we have now, balls are bouncing back at your head.
Well, I'm not talking about now, we're talking about brand new.
Just,
Proof in the pudding. If we see that, that's fine, Fine, we have the fence, we have the net, fine. The slab, the turf shoes, that's it. What else can we ask for? And you need concrete because the weeds. And if you tell me about weed spray and stuff like that, it doesn't work. We have weeds all over the place. If it wasn't for Mr. Bennett here, we'd have weeds 6 feet tall. They go in there with a weed eater. The guys from From here, they don't do it. He has to do it. He chooses to do it. And we're out there doing what we can to help him. He has painted the dugouts. So, you know, he's done everything there.
We have great volunteer. Love this guy. But we have, I do think we're landing specifically on, and this, let me just kind of, for the record, go on record, because I struggled a lot with the concrete. You know, these guys over time have convinced me because, you know, they do it every time, and one of the things that I kept thinking, and Coach posed this question, you know, are you wanting to reward them, or are you trying to, you know, get what's right? And the more I thought about the question, the more it kind of became more intriguing for me, the idea of longevity of the funds. And that's kind of what the expectation is. And so when I kept thinking over and over in concrete is a must, and the more I got convinced, if they're going to be sitting out there in the places where we may not have these guys out there maintaining years after years, at least we'll have something that's going to be there for quite some time. And so they kind of convinced me, you know, there's value in having that concrete, even in the smaller cage if we have to go on there. I think the piece that I want to put out there for consideration, if we're going to go down that road with concrete in the smaller cages, would be right now we don't have enough turf to cover the cages. So the turf that we have left over, currently under the current price, we would still have to order more. So I just want to make sure the BOC is aware that we would have to order more turf if we go in there.
A square foot.
That's
That is going to be a big difference.
You're talking about, we have probably half, well, for one batting cage, maybe.
At one school, you need 4 of them.
Yeah, so you're talking about 3,900 square feet, or 70 by 42, which is 2,800 times 5, so 14,000 bucks. Twice, so another 28,000 bucks for the turf.
Does a
And
turf?
I know when I go to Home Depot and I've seen the turf that they have there, and they have a 12-foot swatch of it for $300 and some, that you're talking a lot of money.
Yeah, you're down by.
To do the other
you're
three.
about 9 by 12 piece of, 9 by 12 without, what, 86, 180 square feet? We're talking about 3,800 square feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the difference is. A lot of difference. Right now, we just don't have the money. Had this been brought to us earlier, it may have flied, but I don't think it'll fly now. Going concrete, because it's too much money.
Mr. Gomez.
If they're going to put turf, whether they use the clay soil, infield soil in a curb, or slab, well then that turf cost is going to be the same with either option. Keno right now is using, on their new batting cages, the soil, infield soil, but it takes some maintenance. About every 6 months you have to, sort of break it up a little bit and re-rake it and that sort of thing. And so in talking with different people, including Mr. Huey in Mission Manor, who used to play pro ball, I kept hearing concrete slab just for, if you're going to do it so that it lasts a long time. Now, whether we go with the curb or the slab, Liberty, their bid includes embedding the post in that concrete curb or slab, and that's why that if we go with the curb, it's shown at 12 inches deep. The clayey soil would only need to be maybe 4 inches, but we would have AB under that, compacted. And before we put that on, we still do the soil compaction at about 95%, and then you put the AB, and you have drainage, and then you have you can put the artificial turf.
And the red clay would give them the surface that they would normally be playing on.
It's the same that they're going to be playing with the field, right?
So, to me, that seems better because you have kids that dig in no matter what. If it's perfectly flat, they're going to make a hole to get their feet down to where they feel comfortable.
And the bids included, whether it was the curb or the slab, fiber mesh in the mix. So the whole approach was, let's build it so it lasts 30 or 40 years. including the
red clay
gauge of
behind that
steel
one.
that Liberty was posting on their bid. Everything about it was, make it so that, you're gonna do it so that it lasts, and the idea was low maintenance.
Well, that would be low maintenance too also, like I said, with the ABS or the decomposed granite. It's gonna drain fast, it's not gonna become mushy, they're not gonna tear it up so easily, because when you hit a ball at 80 miles an hour in the batter's swing, and he hits the ball, when it hits that carpet, it's going to dig out pieces of carpet, no matter how good it is. It's gonna take small pieces. Thousands of times doing that, we'll have holes wherever the ball is hitting so many times. Normal ground, clay, you can hit it as many times and you just bring it back in.
Well, on one idea, if you go with the curb and the clay soil, which is like what they're gonna be experiencing when they play anyway, maybe they'd have an idea that they try it for a year or two. If they don't like it, it's not difficult to remove that clay, verify your compaction and put concrete in it. You've got the curb.
Yeah, because you
The
already
form's already there.
know it.
The form's already there, so they could always add that and add it at maybe, 1.5% slope from the center out, so that you don't have to worry about drainage or any of that.
I'd like a revised total of the 70 by 42 by 12 with, on the other bill, the electrical and so forth. This is totally off.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Getting to the electrical portion of this, I'd rather spend the extra money and go with the licensed contractor, given the single fatality we've had in the last 2 years with somebody touching a metal fence or being around the area where it wasn't properly grounded or bonded, that I'd hate to see somebody try to have a group of students wire something where there's liability of somebody getting hurt. So, it's always, the onus is always on the licensed contractor to do what he's supposed to do and do it safely. And another thing that we did with the girls' batting cages for the softball field is that we requested not only a licensed contractor, but also a permit for the electrical portion so we could have a third-party inspection done on the electrical part. Simply because of the liability of water, lightning, and that type of hazard present in our environment around that place. We don't want to have the same thing happen to like the kid at Reed Park, watching a baseball game and touching the fence and he's dead.
Actually, it was a pull box.
Yeah.
He stepped on a
We're
pull
going to
box.
have a pull box, look at what they're giving the power from. It's a long way to necessitate a pull box no matter what.
That's why people use fiberglass now.
Yeah.
So then the bid would be without even an electrical price because.
No, he's got the pricing, but he's got another bid from Yellow Plus Tech, which is less, but it would be students doing the work.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So I'd rather see the option of the licensed contractor. Mr. Antunes?
Yes, sir.
I make a recommendation here, I agree with the president, we gotta have this come back with a more concise amounts that we need to consider to be able to approve.
For that, we just rebid everything.
Okay.
If we can. I think
So
that'd be
70 by
very
42,
much.
70 by 42
By 12.
by 12.
With curb and turf and concrete.
Concrete. The concrete slab price and the curb.
Okay, we'll do.
Because then if you're concrete, to me, you're gonna have the artificial turf on it.
Yeah.
But either way, if they did the clay, were they gonna have turf on that?
No.
Just clean. Actually,
Then-
for me, I think it's better to have.
We'll be saving a lot of money by putting the clay.
But in
But
the
if
long run,
We can bring that back.
We'll still be saving money because the turf costs a lot of money.
and, what else was I going to ask?
I think that'd be more
And
easier us to.
another question too, what Mrs. Baca had asked about the batter's boxes, which was those mats for safety. I didn't,
We would need them.
yeah.
It'd be a moot point now. It would be, yeah.
We'll bring back a revised
Some
proposal.
correction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion on that?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think probably just move to bring back a
Motion to table.
The table with revised specification of 70 by 42 by 12.
And all the extra.
With and electrical, yes.
Second.
Who was first?
Mr. Yancey.
No, he can't.
The motion is to
To bring back proposal
a
for
new proposal for a 70 by 42 by 12 with the accessories that we discussed.
that was moved by,
And second. Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yeah.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Romero? Mr. Sprong?
Yes.
Mr. May? Mr. Verdugo?
Yes.
Good, this is good spirited discussion, I like it.
Okay, Gallego Intermediate Landscape Architecture proposal.
thank you, Mr. Verdugo. Mr. Gomez will be taking over for this item. And are they,
Well, Laura is here from,
okay, introduce her, go ahead.
So Michael invited me to come here tonight. Good evening, thanks for having me. And Michael asked me to introduce myself, the firm, my landscape architecture firm that we own, that I own, talk about our qualifications as a landscape architecture firm, and then get into the site improvements at Gallego Intermediate School. So my name is Laura Mulcair. I'm a registered landscape architect, and I own a landscape architecture firm here in Tucson. We're celebrating our 35 years in business this year, and we've been a Tucson-based landscape architecture firm the whole time. We do mostly public work. We work with a lot of civil engineers, structural engineers, and architects, and most of our portfolio is public work. So we're very qualified on large projects. I'm very used to working on a multidisciplinary project. So we do lots of big transportation work. We did the 1019 interchange, and also do projects for Pima County, City of Tucson, ADOT. So we do a fair amount of transportation work, but we also do quite a bit for the U of A, the University of Arizona. So we've done work on Old Main, and what if I do this? Of course. It's kind of awkward. So we do projects for the U of A. And here is the Women's Plaza. That's just west of the Centennial Hall. So we worked on that one. And we also do a fair amount of parks. So when the bonds were passed in 2014, actually 2009 and 2014, we did a fair amount of parks work. It's not a lot of money in parks right now, so we're not quite as active in parks. But as far as relating to our qualifications for this Gallego project, we have a lot of parks, schools. We do pathways. We do the planting, the irrigation, turf work. We also do shade structures. We've designed shade structures in-house as well as speccing out prefab shade structures. We've done sports fields. We've done libraries. This one is in Midtown. Yeah, we actually have done like 4 or 5 libraries. We do churches, and we also do a handful of commercial and a little bit of residential, so. Any questions on Beat Design Group? Okay. So for the Gallego Intermediate project, Michael reached out to me in regards to the site improvements project. And Michael is currently working with EMC Squared. They are architects in Phoenix, and they currently have 2 projects going on in the Sunnyside School District.
Remodeling and the fine arts desert.
Okay. And we'll also be working with Perry Engineering. His name's Ken Perry. So the Perry Engineering is the civil engineer, EMC Squared is the architect, and we're the landscape architects. We need all 3 for the project. So I'm here to also just kind of, this is just for the design services, for the professional, for our proposal, for our work. It is not, I'm not here with specific numbers about this improvement, this improvement, this improvement. This is just to start the design work, to get your approval to start the design work.
Do you, when you're doing the designs themselves, do you take any input from the person that's hiring you for the type of motif that you want in that area? Or you just do whatever you think what will fit the bed?
Well, we went out there with Michael, as well as the principal at Gallego and TJ, who is
TJ Rodriguez
TJ Rodriguez.
was with us, and
Oh.
Anna Gallegos, the principal.
And we went out there to kind of see what was needed. We decided also, and I'll get into this more about the specifics, how we're going to divide it up into phase 1 and phase 2. We're going to be hopefully under contract for just the phase 1. So I'll describe that all in a bit. And it is a combination of how much it costs. We haven't determined concrete versus asphalt. We did get some bids for the turf work, because there is turf improvements for the field. As a professional landscape architect, you also have to do with what you think is needed for the site. So here's Gallego, just to kind of, this is pointing north, and the school, which was just renovated, it's beautiful inside now. This is the southern exit, and they go on to the field, and then here's an elementary school down here, just to get your perspective. It's this field right here. It's their main field that has a lot of issues. There's caliche. Someone broke their arm a few weeks ago, a lot of potholes. So that field is a priority, as well as the ADA accessibility on the playground, which does not exist at this point. So here's a couple pictures of the site. You can see no shade. It's someone who is in a wheelchair, it'd be very hard for them to access the tables. And here is also the outdoor bathrooms, which are not ADA accessible. So that's part of the phase 1. I'll outline it too, just giving you a perspective of the school. Here's their exit, where all the kids go out for recess. They go through the gate, and bam, they're right on gravel, which is not, someone with disabilities, it's almost impossible to traverse. And here we are, looking south on the field that needed so much work. And not only does the field having problems, it's the caliche and the potholes, but also access to the bleachers over here on the west side of the field. So it doesn't look like a big slope, but it's not ADA accessible. So there's no way for anyone with disabilities to get to the bleachers and watch the sports that are going on. The water fountain isn't working. It needs to be relocated. And here's just another. There is an existing, which is fairly new, a playground, and then there is this one shaded place on the campus that has 2 tables to eat their lunch, and that's really about the only shade that's on the playground. So to repeat, there's phase 1. There's going to be phase 1 and phase 2, and phase 1 is the biggest priority for Gallego, is to get those done first. And bulleted is as I described, the sidewalks. I didn't describe this. I'm going to go back to the site, just the aerial. Here we go. So the phase 1 improvements will consist of access from Gallego, from their door over through the driveway, and then a lot of the families have kids at both schools. So they drop off the kids at Gallego or vice versa, and then go and drop their younger ones off at the elementary school. And there is a gate right about here. So they wanted access along this road, and then here's the gate, and it would go past the bleachers, and then having the ADA accessibility on the playground area to the doorway. So that's the first, one of the first elements for phase 1. Also, here are the outdoor bathrooms that I showed a picture of, and there's no way for, someone with disabilities to kind of get through this gate. It's all gravel, and then there's a really big lip going up to the bathrooms. And they also, there's 4 classrooms here, and they wanted, the principal was saying how they wanted access from 1 or 2 of the classrooms into the bathroom, so they don't have to walk all the way around to the outside to get into the bathrooms. So there's the bathrooms. There's also just ADA accessibility throughout the playground. I showed, here's the one shade structure. This is an older aerial. This is about where the playground equipment is, and it's all just gravel. It should be either decomposed granite, stabilized decomposed granite, or asphalt concrete, whatever, there's different options for ADA accessibility. There's no handicap parking here in this parking lot, so they wanted to just restripe a few of the parking stalls for handicap use. Also, some additional shade structures, depending on the budget. We could 1 or 2 pre-engineered shade structures for additional shade, as well as trees for shade, some landscape. And the biggie, well, and then I mentioned the drinking fountains that are not working, but to locate them in spaces or places that make more sense. And the biggie, I saved the best for last, is the main sports field improvements. And that is because I mentioned the caliche and the potholes. We talked to 2 landscape contractors, and it's sounding like it'll be 12 inches, 18 inches would be ideal of excavating out the caliche, bringing in new fill, replacing the irrigation system, and then bringing in new turf. So, and then, so that's phase 1, which is kind of the big one, and phase 2 is, where I got here, it's better for the aerial. These are existing fields, and they're having some issues too with potholes, so one would be just kind of field upgrades to improve the existing fields, to increase some more planting trees for shade at the north end. That's where the buses pull in and out, and it's pretty hot and sunny, so it's providing some shade for the kids when they're waiting for the buses. And as well as ADA accessibility from the school to these 2 existing fields. So it the design's not done, or we haven't even started, but it would probably be access along here, this access, as well as ADA accessibility this way and this way, so they can go to the backstops to these 2 fields. And that's phase 2. And that's it. Thank you.
Question. As far as the engineering goes, do they shoot points from all over the school to make sure that we don't have water issues like we've had in the past?
They thought it was...
They will explain, excuse me.
Yes.
So they'll explain to us how the water is going to be removed from the grounds itself, so that we know we can physically see how you're going to have the grounds marked out so we can see it?
I talked to Ken Perry with the civil, and he was planning on surveying the whole site and flying,
Because
shooting
it looks
the
like
whole
a lot
site.
of the buildings that are there on the left-hand side are going to have issues with water. We don't know how bad they are now. We don't know whether they're leaning in or leaning out. So that's why I'm saying we would like to see, right, so you see how all of those are there, and I don't know if that's all asphalt or all concrete, but what I don't want is that we have to, in a year or two, when we find out when it does rain, that it's water holding up where we don't want it, and have to go through this again, because this would be the first time we had a water issue.
At this location?
At any location. What I'm saying is, we don't want water issues when we can plan it now, get it done now so we don't have to worry about water issues later. We don't want to do what we've been doing in the past. Just doing something and say, oh, we forgot to do this, now we've got a water issue on the field, baseball field or football field.
If I may add a little something to that.
All right.
I spoke with Ken Perry this afternoon. He's the civil engineer that's included in this proposal. And he explained to me that in his base bid that includes survey, that right now he has for phase one, I believe it's $4,900 for the survey. And it would be an aerial survey. You know, they put panels, you've probably seen those panels before that they put on streets and so forth. So they would put panels that would cover all of this area, all of phase one. And he did not include phase two, but he did say he'd recommend doing that survey now and having them put panels here now, which would be a low fee, an additional $2,500. And he says the reason it's low is because they're going to fly it anyways. So it makes sense to go ahead and have them do the whole site. As it is, his first phase, I think, is 11 acres, is that correct? I think it's, I think it was 11 acres. 11 acres. And so this additional acreage we could do for $2,500. And when they fly that, it's the gradients on the plan at 40th scale are 1 foot apart. So it shows the grades every 1 foot. And then the accuracy of that is about 6 inches. And he said that when they do ramps and things like that, then he'll send a survey crew out and they'll take exact points, you know, to match the top of a slab or to match asphalt in the parking lot and so forth.
So where on that is that berm that you see, that elevation?
Right in here.
That's where where
Where
you see that hill, where you see.
Yeah, and there's a waterfall too, just right there too.
It looks like a substantial amount
Mhm.
for, and so all of that would be leveled out.
Right, it'd be graded and having either asphalt or concrete gradual sidewalk ramp, slightly, slope ramp up to the bleacher area. Bleachers are a little bit higher than the actual playground equipment.
Actually, I had a question for Hector. When the Gallego project came about and for the remodeling, was there never any discussion on another phase as far as the grounds? That never came up
No, ma'am.
in the original bid? I was just
As a matter of
wondering.
fact, in the original bid, they did do with the grounds. They relocated that football field there,
Uh-huh.
was there, and they renovated it. There used to be a tennis court where there's parking lot, the very first parking lot north of the sports field. There used to be a tennis court right there. Right there used to be tennis courts. They demolished those, removed it, and put additional parking. And then they also did the fields too, irrigation and.
They put irrigation and they planted grass seed.
I think that's what happened. I think they
In the cleats.
they softened it up, they put it back again.
Lord.
You can actually see where we're standing there. That's caliche, with the soil just washing away.
The only other thing also, and I'm looking at right now, is that the solar project, we'll be installing some solar panels, and I'm trying to confirm whether or not there's any planned solar shade structures in the playground area, or if it's all
There is.
parking lot.
There is, if you go back to the site plan, the last time I saw their proposal, they had in here, in this area, they had solar, and then also they had some, I believe it was right along here. There's a road right here that accesses the kitchens and so forth right here. I think they had stored solar panels along here and this whole parking lot. The last time I saw them.
I was wondering, do any of your schools, do you use water collection? The cisterns?
Water harvesting.
They have retention areas, which is good to have. But also to answer your earlier question about drainage, Mr. Hernandez, that could be shown. It will show, the aerials will show, how a grade may come like this, and you can tell where the low spots are. But the master plan and having a civil engineer on board, all of that should should be worked together. And you can't really do it effectively unless you have a master plan. You could be flooding something in the future where you want to do a school addition or whatever, and it makes a lot of sense, with efficiency, and not wasting money by having to tear stuff out that was done incorrectly before to have a master plan.
I have a question. You mentioned something about the caliche. We're going to approximately have to pull out 12 to 18 inches worth of ground to get rid of the caliche.
Probably, that's all I'm sorry, I can't be more
And then
specific.
fill it up after that.
I don't know how you're going to.
Lose the solar panels.
The blue shape.
Just trying to show you the blue areas.
They're going to be deeper.
That's all over the place.
Did you see her introduction? I did. I wanted to give her. Okay, she's going to give her.
So the request basically tonight is to approve, recommend to the governing board that we proceed with awarding EMC to a contract for $30,040, which will entail $7,500 fees for the EMC2, landscape consultant $12,240, civil engineer consultant $10,003. But then you mentioned something about the additional survey. The 10,300 only does not include.
Well, the survey, the aerial survey is included.
The 10,300?
For phase one, but what's not included is the aerial survey of this, which the civil engineer that I spoke with this afternoon, he recommended, he said, I gave a very low price because we have to put panels here and fly this area anyways. He said, you might as well put a few panels here and get the whole thing done at once. But he wasn't sure if we wanted to spend it, so that, he said that would be another $2,500. So that's to survey phase two at this point. Because the main focus was phase one, which is access to here, and ADA access around here, and perhaps down to this gate, and handicap parking here, restriping, and then access to the bathrooms that are here. So all of that, and also to this field because of that steep slope that's here when they come out of the back door. So all of that's phase one, and then access to these fields would be phase two, including improving the fields, because there's caliche.
Any estimate as far as estimated cost of phase one? Ballpark?
Michael said to be prepared for that, because you're probably going to get that question. With the landscape contractors that we talked to about the field, 18 inches, irrigation, turf, we're looking at $3 a square foot. And the field itself is about $50,000. If you, the whole grass area enclosed by the track is about $100,000. Then, part of that is going to be evaluating the 12 inches versus 18 inches. Part of that is evaluating asphalt versus concrete. Salvaging the valves. We went out there and looked, and the valves are still in good shape. So is
that sod? With sod?
So are these monies coming out of the Gallego budget or the athletic?
The Gallego.
Gallego.
Yeah, because they have money left.
1.705.
Yeah.
Come on,
Do we need to specify that in the motion?
Pardon me?
Do we need to specify that in the motion?
What's that?
Where the money's coming from?
Oh, basically, tonight's action basically is requesting your approval to recommend to the governing board awarding a contract to EMC2 to conduct that amount plus $2,500, right?
Yes.
So plus $2,500 for phase two civil.
But she's asking, and that's going to come out of that 1.705.
It's coming out of the Gallego intermediate.
And then from, also, I spoke with Dominic of EMC Squared this afternoon and confirmed that his fee includes, should Bach decide to have a weak design group and Laura do any metal structure designs, for shade structures instead of the canopy ones, the pre-made ones, his fee is included in that. He said there might be a little structural, might be a couple thousand in structural, depending on the structure, but the architectural fees are included.
A couple things. I was wondering, how long do those canopies last? Those blue, or is that what you're talking about? Like where you see the blue materials in the sun?
Sometimes I had 10, but I think it's longer now. 10-year warranty
10 years.
of the shape of the actual just fabric itself.
And
But
the
I-
bathrooms, how many stalls in the bathrooms, and are they big enough to accommodate?
According to Ms. Warmbrand, she said they're going to start, they believe they're going to start using this building. I think there's 4 classrooms in there that they're going to start using real soon. And also on the other side of this building, you can probably see it on the site plan, there's a shade structure right here. So once they start using this is an ideal space to be able to start using too. It's a small shade structure, just in address to those 4 classrooms. But those bathrooms seem snug. I think there's a couple of partitions, units in each one. And so they could, there's room right on the side, so it could be added on to if that was determined to be part of the scope of work.
Like if you ever have, now you have this beautiful new field, you're gonna have a sporting event, and then not enough bathroom stalls and...
I think there's 2. There's 3, 2 or 3 in.
2 or 3 stalls?
Yeah.
They're not accessible right now, right?
Well, you can use, not for someone in a wheelchair or disability, can't get in there. And it's pretty tight. Even it's a little, like the door swings out to the outside and it's just tight in the entranceway.
I didn't check if it was ADA compliant yet as far as.
How far is it, can you leave that picture back again from the bathroom? Is the other one where you're showing the site itself? How far is it from that white building to the far corner in feet? Does anybody know? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's handicap accessible to walk.
You mean
from wherever you be watching, like this is the field of some kind?
They would have, right there's 2 bleachers right there that are very lonely, they're just collegiate.
No, I know,
bleachers.
but I'm saying is wouldn't it behoove, since one day they may move this school instead of a school that it is right now, maybe a middle school where you're going to have more events down in this field right here, to put a bathroom in the far corner, over there someplace where, what do you call it, handicaps could get there quicker than they can now. I don't know how far it is, but to me it looks like about 400 feet.
Well, that looks like a football field there.
It's 300 feet.
So it's 330 for the football field itself. And then about 60 or, it's over 400 feet. It's a long way. Now, I'm only speaking for myself here because I know I couldn't walk that far or go be pushing a wheelchair fast enough when I think I have to go to the bathroom. The older you get, the less time you have to go from one place to another. And if you have to waste 400 or 500 feet to get there, you are not going to make it. Period.
Well, if Block wanted that to be included, it could be a schematic, and it could be done in phase 1 or phase 2. And Block would decide, of course, if they want to do phase 1, when they would want to do phase 2. But the planning is important because even if you put some new irrigation, if this is going to need new or drinking fountains, they could put part of the infrastructure in there, cap it off when they do this phase, which may include.
Which way is the drainage on this for the city drainage? Is it on this side, I guess it would be the east side or west side? I'm not sure.
I don't know right now.
Is there a drainage running through there for the city
Right across.
sewer system? Or is it in front?
I don't know, but there is a road connecting here, but I don't know.
As far as.
Anything about storm sewer existence, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I don't have any
You have
knowledge.
no idea. Okay.
Sort of.
And
Just asking questions.
I had a question too, as far as process goes. Would this be something where I would come back and show the master plan to the committee, or is it? Okay.
Right now, we just be giving you the green light, or we're recommending the governing board to give you the green light.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the governing board to award EMC Square a contract to provide landscaping and civil engineering services in the amount of $32,440. Second. Roll call.
Ms. Baca?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero? Mr. Strong?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdullo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bond project update.
Did you want me to do that right now, Michael? Or after?
Well, you're okay? Oh, okay. No, pass.
Pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bond project updates.
Mr. Gomez is going to provide this committee with an update on the bond project. I think he
good, sir.
handed out a handout prior to the meeting, which lists all the projects that have been completed or are in the process of being completed. So I'll just turn this over to Mr. Gomez.
I wanted to give you an update of the parking lot. If you remember the parking lot in the north side of Edmund View that accesses the soccer field and the softball field. So this, each photo here will be a before and after. So this is before this area. The parking lot's completed. This is the after. And, next photo, please. This is before there was chain link fence that had to be removed to be able to get access to the security fence, which was also scheduled to be painted at the time they were working on this. So that and a lot of the growth between the fences was removed. So the next photo, again, it shows what was afterwards. So this is the completed new parking lot, and it does have 3 handicap spaces, including one of them being van accessible. This is the before area. You can see that some boards here that are holding up some of the earth. There was a lot of overgrowth. Maintenance came out and did a nice job of trimming a lot of the trees and removing those that were in the way. And this is what this area looks like now. BOC approved in the group of small fence projects at the last BOC. They approved fencing, chain link fencing here that included fencing around the existing transformer with an access gate. So that was put in place by Liberty. This is the area looking south in the parking lot. It's the same view looking south. All of the fence has been painted by De Leon. They did a good job on it. And they did, I inspected it many times, and they were always power washing the fence first. They used a primer to touch up all rust spots before they went on and painted it. So they're doing a good job at painting the security fences at the schools. I think there's one more. This area, you know, the backstop here, and then soccer fields beyond, and then over here the girls softball. And this was an area of you looking south towards that backstop. And this is the way the parking lot looks now. So land maintenance has an opportunity to plant trees and landscape. There's also an asphalt walkway that's 8 foot wide that goes out to the gate here, and it's a lockable gate if you want to lock it, and it goes all the way down to the softball field along the fence. So that's all in place and complete. The finished view looking south. On this project, for future work, I wanted to bring the box attention. 2 weeks ago, I was with Lloyd Construction. And while I was waiting for 2 representatives from Lloyd Construction to come over and meet me, I was inside this lobby at Sunnyside. And next photo. So here's a set of doors. So I was standing in here, and I was expecting Lloyd Construction to come walking through, and then all of a sudden, instead of Lloyd Construction, it was this young gentleman, and he was struggling getting through the door. And so then I went outside and I saw that they don't have any push plates into the lobby of Sunnyside. And this is, he had a struggle to get in. So perhaps Bach should consider to make sure that all the lobbies, the main entrances of every school has push plate and ADA accessibility for whoever may visit, including the lobby. You can see here, there's no push plates out there, so that's perhaps a future project. Another group? Yes, and then this is Los Niños. Their exterior bathrooms, which have been remodeled, and they did a nice job on them. But these grills and this door is rusted out. And if you remember, Bach approved Lloyd Construction to do the ADA door widenings. These doors meet ADA as far as width, but they're rusting out and they're rotted. So I have a quote that came in late this afternoon. It was for, let's see if I have the exact amount of that. It was for 14,000 and some change, and I wanted to see if Bach would give the approval to use those ADA funds that were already approved for that to replace those two doors. I think I emailed it to you too.
So it'll be brought up later meeting then.
Next Bach. And there's some other exterior doors in schools too that we found at Desert View. There's 4 bathroom doors, 2 girls, 2 boys, that are accessible from the courtyard area. And those 2 are rusted, damaged, including the frames. And even though they're the right width, we wanted to see if we have Bach's permission again to replace those doors. Some of those funds there was approximately $139,000 for ADA bathroom doorways. And the reason I'm asking is because the purchase order was already issued, so it's already been approved. But it was originally, what we had proposed was, in a lot of the doorways, we will need to cut this, saw cut the block and make them wider. In these 2 cases, Desert View and Los Niños, we don't have to make them wider, but they need the new doors and they are for the bathrooms. So we wanted to ask Bach if it was okay to replace these doors out of that budget.
So they would have been replaced otherwise, right? If you had to make them ADA accessible. If you had to cut the block. You would have put new doors in that?
If we had to cut the block.
Right.
But on Desert View and this set, we don't have to cut the block because they have the width, but they need the new doors and frames. So
that money's accounted for then?
It is in the ADA fund of $139,000. So that we had that and some change after that as an upset of what we could spend to get the ADA doorways for the bathrooms.
So do we need to wait till next month?
If I'm hearing Mr. Gomez correctly, Bach already approved $139,000 to address ADA doors. So long as we stick within that dollar amount and address ADA doors, we have the green light. Okay. Perfect.
Okay. It's just that we weren't saw cutting like we presented, so I wanted to make sure that Bach understood what we were doing.
Everybody was okay with it?
Update.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Anything else as far as the update, Mr. Gomez?
Yeah, this is just a few photos showing the rust along here and why they need replacing with the frames and the doors. But that's all I have.
As far as the playground project, the playground equipment project, Mr. Valdez informed me that It's 100% complete except for Esperanza. The shade structures that were approved by Bob and the board have been installed. The playground equipment has all been installed, except again for the only one that's left over is Esperanza. And I think, I don't know what the issue there is, whether it's finishing the old playground and moving some equipment out of there and moving to the Drexel. So,
You did say that it was for the doors and like 2 grates above the doors. Do the other bathrooms that you were talking about have grates also?
No, they don't. They're just doors and frames, but the frames are rusted and they're pounded in, and it's very hard to open the doors. Midstate also was in agreement that we needed to replace the doors and the frames. So that would be 4 units there at Desert View, and then these 2 at Los Niños. Also at Los Niños, there's 2 others that are at library doors, and that's where those 2 bathrooms in the library they use for handicap and disabled children. So those we are actually cutting the openings wider and putting new doors and frames. So that's part of all the bids that we're getting put together by Lloyd. And they use eGordian, which is qualified, by the state as far as their pricing.
The widening of the door is for handicap, though, is that the reason?
Yes.
Mr. Gomez, I remember we talked in the past about some of the concerns we had with excessive cracking at Elvira and that post-tension slab. Did we ever get any resolution on that?
Just about. I'll be writing a letter tomorrow, and because I finished my research on it, but I've spoken with some engineers, and I also had a meeting with people in the Pima County Building Department.
The IBC clearly states what the requirements are for a post-tension slab, and
It is, but I was anticipating maybe some debate from Elite Sports, the contractor, so that's why I was getting all my, all's in order to do this. And so, according to the county, it is a law. It's clearly stated in the IRC and the IBC that post-tension slabs have to be permitted and have to be inspected, and they have to do a report. And the problems with this multi-purpose court that was post-tension at Elvira is right now there's some cracking in half of it, in the southern half. And that cracking in the southern half suggests, according to engineers, that it was a hot mix that had sat out in the sun too long, and because there's no reason that you can justify the north half curing differently than the southern half. And when I asked, and before it started cracking, as the project was being wrapped up, when I asked Elite Sports for their geotech report, which was in their bid at $1,200, they said, but they didn't use a geotech. And he said right away, oh, well, we'll deduct it from the invoice. I said, I'm not concerned with the cost. I said, but you were supposed to use geotech. I said, okay, can you send me the report from your post-tension subcontractor? And he hemmed and hawed, and it took me 2 weeks just to get him to send an email what he cited the tension at himself. Because I had said, well, can you have your post-tension contractor send me a letter on his letterhead of the 2 days that he did the tensioning, because there's 2 different times they do it. A certain percentage, and then they come back like a week later and do another percentage. And that's law. That's building code, and they weren't able to produce any of that.
I remember when that was, go ahead. I remember when that was first proposed, one of the questions I had was that, was it going to be third-party verified, including a geotechnical report? You said it was, and that was part of the bid, and to hear that they never did their due diligence providing the geotech and having any type of third-party inspections, especially post-tension.
So in my letter, I'm recommending that they rip it out and redo it, and including all the logo that Elvira paid for in the center and so forth.
As far as the checking of the hot mix, very simple. They do a quartet, see the stress that it go under, whether it was a hot day, which I don't believe, but they could also check the mix as far as what the PSI is on the concrete itself, and that will help to tell you how many sack mix they put in that one. Maybe they only put 3, or they did a 4 and they were expecting a 5. I don't know, but what I'm saying is, there's easy ways to check this stuff. And like when we started this, I told them that there would be cracking no matter what. If you go down to any bridge, and the concrete in some of these bridges is over 3 feet thick, and they get cracks in them. And he was telling, the teacher principal was telling me that they're guaranteed not to crack because it's post-tension. It doesn't happen. This is in another world.
The only structure that I've seen with not a crack in it, and I looked hard. I spent an hour looking for a crack when I was in Rome visiting the Pantheon. 2,000-year-old structure, I couldn't find a crack.
That's because they do maintenance on it all the time. And the people that work on those things, the people that work on those things, they know how to patch it so that you can't see it. They've been working on these things for thousands of years. It doesn't happen accidentally.
So the letter is putting the monkey on elite sports responsibility, saying, we're recommending them to remove it and redo it. And if they want to do the core drilling, and if they want to find other options that may work, that needs, my thought is that should be up to them and at their cost and their time.
How much cracking is there? Is it just one crack, or is it just spider webs everywhere?
It's sort of a spider web, and it has gotten progressively worse. And it's on mainly the south side. There's a few little on the north side, but it's mainly the south half of the slab. The slab runs north-south.
Well, if they suggest something like grooving all the cracks and pouring epoxy into them, I don't think that will fly with me. I know it won't, because it's the same thing. It's just going to crack a little later is all.
Yeah, it'd be winding up like Desert View's tennis courts.
Yeah.
Well, and I believe that their response shows insincerity. They didn't have the geotech report. They didn't use a geotech, he told me, as they said they would in their bid. And I had to bring it up. And they also didn't do they didn't have any report from the subcontractor, so it makes me wonder who even post-tensioned it.
Right.
Were they with vice grips on each side? I don't know.
So you never know. So at the end, it was only 4 inches thick. That was my biggest problem, because they do, like I told them that time, they do slats or one post tension, it's a foot thick, and it crack. Where did they get this that it's not going to crack? Who's going to guarantee that? You know what they're going to tell you? The contractor's board doesn't have to go along with that because they have rules too. Nothing is perfect. Nothing.
Except that.
They'll just say,
Except not having the reports, that's a problem.
Part of the agreement.
Pantheon in Rome.
well, hopefully we're covered under that.
I just want to say that this is an extraordinary accomplishments, list of accomplishments here, and it's really impressive to have it, all the completed behind all these tasks. It was, that's a lot of work. Very, very well, and much kudos to you and all the follow-up and research that you do to accomplish all these. It's quite amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, because now we're being informed.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the whole thing. Now we're being informed. Whereas before,
Request for future items, agenda items.
Yes, sir, I think at this point in time, I think we've got direction to bring back the batting cages to the next BOP meeting, to be October 18th?
18th, I think it is.
20th?
So has there ever been any consideration to your very own parking lot here? Like redoing that?
I have a bid
Oh, okay.
from Regional Paving.
Because it's pretty rough to walk.
And the reason I have a bid is because at some point they're gonna start putting, solar structures.
No.
So they're gonna dig big footings and tear it up. And so my thought was that's the time to demo the whole thing. If we have a contract with Regional or somebody like that, they can come and demo it, and then the solar people can come the next day or two and do their footings and everything, and then repave it at that point.
It's going to be nothing but solar panels here, the whole
How many panels do we need to run this place?
It doesn't run it. It just feeds back into the grid and we get money back for it.
Oh,
Yeah, because we don't have a storage system to get that solar and store it somewhere, and then when we lose power,
So they can't use it directly, no lights and stuff?
no, nothing. It just goes back and it offsets what we pay, it offsets the cost of what we generated.
The meter will sit and receive
Yeah.
and it
So
delivers.
they'll just subtract it.
But
But it's some sites, I think we're looking at.
Some battery, yeah.
Some batteries, some Tesla batteries.
But from what I understand, the second phase will have batteries, and they can use that source during the peak phases to keep us in a lower rate.
Yeah, we had a presentation with Tesla last night at the IEI, and the biggest one right now that they have is only 4,500 watts, which is 315 amp circuits, so, I haven't seen any bigger, so I'm sure they're out there.
And then we'll meet, October, what's the second?
18.
The 18th are meeting, there will be 2 weeks before that with the agenda setting committee to get the agenda.
That's correct.
Or fourth.
That's it.
Make a motion to adjourn. Finish.
Second.
Any business?
We've done-
Motion to adjourn. We had a motion, we had a second. Roll call.
Ms. Carta?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Romero? Mr. Sproul?
Yes.
Ms. Tomei? Mr. Verdugo?
What 23 days, you cannot only carry over 23 days, any days beyond 23 days.
We get to clarify. Man, you can't say anything, you cannot. Yeah, there's some